So you've gotten a little better at practicing the artful no. If you haven't, there's a link right down below here to the video that we created a few weeks ago about how to say no in a way that actually works. And by saying yes to one thing, you say no to a whole bunch of things. So you've seen that those who are good at the art of saying no are probably really keenly aware of the mission that they're a part of, and they're keenly aware of the results that they're trying to achieve as a team and as individuals. They're strategic in their thought process. And if they're good at saying no, they think backwards about time. They think from the result they're trying to achieve back to today. And they're also very compelled by the vision or the result or the thing that they're trying to achieve. They're so compelled by it that they see anything that distracts them, no matter how shiny and how appealing, as of lesser value than the vision or the mission or the goal they're trying to achieve. So when we watch people practice that artful no, we will nearly always see them clarify the mission or the results first at the top of any conversation. We'll also see them ask the question, so how does this new thing that you are asking me to do, or that is being presented to us as an opportunity, help us get to that result better than what we're already doing now? You'll probably also see them get very specific with the type of no that they're saying. Is it a no, not now, or is it a no, not that way? Or is it a no, not me, or a no, not you? Or is it one of those classic no, not now, not ever kind of no's? You'll also see people who are good at practicing no whenever they're asked again, because that's kind of how it happens. They are asked, can we do this? Should we do this? And then they say no. And then people circle back. When that happens, they often ask, okay, what's changed since the last time we had this conversation? And my response was no. You will probably also see them frame that no in the context of a yes. In other words, so we agreed to do A, and we all said yes to that. So therefore we will not be doing B. You can imagine how that helps to communicate and make good decisions at all sorts of levels in your life, from home to work. Here's a pro tip, by the way. When you get to yes, good decision makers and good leaders examine what we will all have to say no to along the way. And they're pretty good at keeping track of that, so that when those opportunities present themselves again later, no one is surprised. Remember, we discussed this. Remember, this is what we said we were not going to do so that we could say yes to this. They count the cost openly. Okay, so you've gotten a little bit better at the practice of the artful no. And now you're going to notice that as that occurs, you'll begin to have margins in your day, maybe in your week, maybe in your month or your year. Because you say no to a lot of enticing distractions, you've actually harvested minutes and hours, sometimes days, during which you aren't so tightly scheduled by distractions that you can't even take a bathroom break. Practicing the artful no eventually results in a more realistic pace of work and of life. This no, followed by the ruthless elimination of hurry, will open up two precious resources: your focus and your time. You're able to focus more easily, and you have unscheduled time, maybe just a little bit at first, and that time and that focus is very refreshing. So then, now what? Now that you are available, what will you do with your margins? Careful, everything around you and everything you have learned and the noisy, fascinating, distracting demands of your life will want to dive in and grab that margin and squander it. So I've learned a couple of things. First, the magic is in the margins. That is where amazing things happen. That is where unexpected riches happen of ideas and of relationships and of execution and of opportunity. The magic is in the margins. The magic doesn't happen when you're just grinding away and spending every minute of every day of every week focused on getting a bunch of stuff done. That's not where the magic happens. That's where maybe productivity happens, if you want to think about it that way. But the magic is in the margins. Second thing I've learned is that judgment flourishes in the margins. It's likely that you are in a role in your family or at work where your judgment is now more important than your ability to just get a bunch of stuff done, following a bunch of rules or cranking out a bunch of work. You may have both that are important, but at this point, probably, your judgment is of greater value. And we've learned that judgment does not happen quickly. In fact, we've even learned terms and tossed them around when someone has judgment they think that they jump to. They jump to a conclusion, or it's a snap judgment, or it's a knee-jerk reaction, and they think it's judgment, but it's actually not. Judgment happens slowly, where you and I are able to step back into the margin of the day or the week or the moment and think and see the whole picture as much as we can, and see how the complicated systems have become complex and how things are connected, so that when you and I make a decision to go this way or that, or to start or to stop something, or to move the focus from this to that, and we do so applying good judgment, we see it across a whole system. Judgment doesn't happen quickly. It happens slowly and thoughtfully, and only in the margins. A third thing we've learned is that creativity flourishes in the margins. You've heard that necessity is the mother of invention. Well, margins are the soil out of which creativity grows. Pressure doesn't necessarily make creativity. Stepping back, taking time, that's where creativity flourishes. And the fourth thing I've learned is that generosity flourishes in the margins. The least generous people I know are not folks who don't have much, but they're the folks who don't have time. They don't have margins in their life where they even notice the needs that other people have got. Generosity springs up in the garden of the margins of life. So with those margins, there's a few things I've also learned over time, and maybe I've learned them from a couple of you. When I have margins, I've learned at first to be at home in the quiet of the margins. In fact, I've applied the discipline of silence in those margins pretty relentlessly, so that I don't have a lot of external stimuli in those margins when they occur, so that I'm not distracted by the shiny objects and the squirrels of social media, for example, all of which is fun for me to be distracted by. But when the margins occur, I notice that that's a margin, and I try to turn off as many external noises as possible. Second thing I've learned and begun to practice is I've learned to be at home with those unproductive spaces in my day, my week, and my life. I'm not just getting a bunch of stuff done and plowing through and checking off my to-do list, which in and of itself is incredibly rewarding for me. I'm the kind of person that has a digital to-do list, and I leave the option on so that when you check that thing done and it puts a line through it, it still stays there, because I love plowing through to-do lists. It's really, really fun for me. That doesn't mean I'm being very productive, and it doesn't mean I'm being wise. And so when a margin occurs, I fight the urge to try to fill most of those margins up with more productive things, and to use those time and those spaces for something that's a little more creative and a little more slow. Another thing I've learned, a third thing here, is to be actually available during those margins, to be open to those occasional opportunities that may arise within those margins. And I'm careful to make sure that those opportunities are not just knee-jerk reactions to opportunities as well. I've learned to say yes to those occasional opportunities that occur in the margins if I'm not agreeing to another long-term project. For example, yes, I can help you move that furniture, but no, I'm not going to use my margins to help you build a barn. And also, I'll say yes to opportunities within that margin if it enriches a relationship. And also, if I'm not doing that thing in the margin out of guilt, but I'm doing it rather out of compassion. And lastly, I'll say yes to something in a margin, an opportunity that I'm available for if I don't have to rush to do it. There's plenty of time in life for me to rush to do things. Plenty of time in life for me to do those other things, but it's specifically in the margin where I'm going to be very careful not to agree to spend time in that margin on something that makes me spin up and go faster. Now, that might not be a hard thing for you to do, but I have a Jack Russell Terrier all jacked up on caffeine kind of personality. So I tend to like going faster and faster and faster, and rushing gives me the sense of significance. It just happens to be a false sense of significance. So what about you? When are you good at saying yes to the things that matter and no, artfully, to the dozens of good things that don't really matter? And when you get good at that, you'll begin to have margins in your life. Notice them. They might surprise you. What will you do with those margins? Because that's where the magic happens. So be careful. Don't just cram them full of junk. Be thoughtful, be available, but the magic happens in the margins. Here's to you.